All right, welcome to the Friday afternoon wrap.
Yes, with Lisa and Sonja.
How are you today, Lisa?
I'm fucking great.
Anything fun or exciting happening in the
I
counting
room today, sort of, accidentally, but there's nothing going on there. It was just sort of a handshake, and he leaned over, and I leaned over, and I gave him a a kiss on the cheek. I went, mwah.
You didn't fill them up or anything, right?
No.
Oh, hey, what's the problem?
I made a noise, too, like, mwah. So where does that lie in the whole harassment realm?
I don't think you can sexually harass your clients.
No, I don't think you can. He leaned in, too.
It happens.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. It was just, we were writing this really intense letter to the IRS about things going on, and we were working with a really nice agent, and he's like, write us a letter, and, this is one thing I do for business, and I'll get serious, is I work with clients in the IRS and getting their fees reduced, for problems they're having. So.
You mean fines reduced?
Fees, fines. I'm just trying to be nice.
You can get some pretty nasty letters from the IRS.
Yes, you can. Let's talk about letters for a bit. Some of these letters that they make it sound like they're going to knock on your door and take away your firstborn, lock you up, and take your cats too.
And they might, but only if you don't do something.
Mm-hmm. And they'll keep sending them and sending them and sending them.
And then maybe a couple of years later they do something.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. And most of the time if you call them, they're like really nice. And you just talk to them. And they'll be like, oh, forget those letters. We just send them out,
They expect you to be absolutely terrorized when you call them.
But we do this so often, we're not terrorized anymore, Start asking them how their day was, what's going on. And, once you get to know the system, you get a little more confident and comfortable, talking and
Sure.
what you can say and what the truth is and what can really happen. I try to study all the time. Pick up articles and read things. Wall Street Journal is a good place to read. Small Business SBA has a great newsletter, so that's another topic for today. Read up on things. Don't get victimized or scared out of your sleep when you get these letters from the IRS or like the state of Massachusetts. We have great ones in the state of Massachusetts. They are going to knock on your door and levy everything yesterday for $300.
And they might, but the bottom line is that, in the event something like that happens, you can obviously go into the court system and, in short order, stop them from any sort of levy they have on your bank accounts or any of those things. But generally, that's only in the extreme cases.
And I tend to get extreme. I think an issue we talk about is fear, where people get letters, they don't really understand them, and they just put them on their desk.
I did that.
Yes, she did do that.
And I'm a lawyer.
And she's a lawyer.
When you get a $9,000 bill from the state of Massachusetts, you might have done something wrong.
You think?
You think?
And then sometimes really you did nothing wrong, because the state of Massachusetts, here's a little insider's tip, and then, we're trying to get people to watch the video, but I tell you who's watching the state of Massachusetts, they'll be watching and calling us up. But they send notices of estimated amounts due for taxes. They pull it out of their ass, basically. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody. They pull a rabbit out of the hat. They come up with a formula and says, well, you must have made this much money, so therefore we want that much tax due. And it's all an estimated bill. But when you get it and they keep sending you notices, if you don't pay it because you don't understand what they're talking about, it can be really scary. So the best thing to do is call us. Call Sonja or call myself. And at 508-567-3226 or 401-864-5877 and talk to somebody, because really it's not as bad as you think, and it's an estimated. 9 times out of 10, I'm not saying that there aren't times when it's a bill, but a lot of times if you've paid your taxes or you filed things and you're still getting bills, it's because there's an estimated tax bill out there. There's something you didn't address properly sometime previously down the line, and now it's coming back to haunt you.
Yeah, and it's the same sort of thing. If we step outside the realm of the IRS and we talk about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and what debt collectors do, that's what I deal with constantly. And the bottom line is that some of these debt collectors are just really rude and angry and mean people. But for the most part, I can tell you, if you're dealing with counsel or you're dealing with a local debt collection firm, you really can't deal with them. These debtors or the creditors rather, are looking to get paid, and 9 times out of 10 you can make some sort of payment arrangement. The absolute worst thing for you to do, though, is to get notice of a wage garnishment and not to challenge that particular.
Let's talk about that. What happens when you get a wage garnishment? Because I'm sure most people feel, oh, it's gotten to this point, there's nothing I can do. So let's talk about that.
Well, there's two things. As an employer, if you get a wage garnishment, you are obligated to withdraw the funds from the employee's check and pay it over to whoever the creditor is. And you are supposed to give a notice every week of that. Nobody ever does. But you have to withhold those funds and you have to pay them over. As far as a debtor who gets one of those notices, you can only take, I think it's 1/4 of the paycheck above 2 times the minimum wage or something like that. It's a statutory formula. Bottom line is they can't take everything that you own.
Mm-hmm.
They can't seize your entire paycheck now. Child support may be different, and I'm not addressing child support at all.
Child support is just court ordered, and they have to take the whatever's court ordered. So that's decided by the court within that jurisdiction, how much it's going to be, and then you're just a repository that picks that money up and sends it into the state.
Right, but with wage garnishments, it's really important. I mean, by the time you're getting a wage garnishment, there's already been a judgment entered against you. There's been an execution served on you. You really need to be paying attention at that point and taking action, because frankly, if I'm in that place and I'm representing a creditor, if I can find the bank account information, I know who your employer is, I'll go seize that account. I have no problem with that. And then you get to call somebody like me and explain why it is that I shouldn't take all
somebody else like you did that.
Using all that up front.
And then you come see me because I deal with talking about debt. I have several clients that come in. It's a practice at the building where they need help. It's the same thing with like they got notices, but instead they get bills and they just don't go through them. So we have a whole system set up. It's customized to you. We basically set up a budget. We set up your income, your regular fixed monthly bills, and then the set of bills that you need to get paid off. And we look at your income to debt ratio in very simple terms. And then we sit with you when we pay bills. I mean, I have some clients come in, we're on a budget, we budget out for the months, and she's starting to get in on a regular budget, and it's a he actually, and when he first came in, he was overdrawn an average of $200 to $400 every time he got his paycheck. So $200 to $400 paid weekly, you start adding that up, and that's paying off bills. Actually, excuse me, it's bi-weekly, so that's still like $600 a month. That's like a handful of bills. And then you wonder why you don't have money, and then you see how many times you're going out. We all like to go out and get some coffee and stuff,
right,
and to go to lunch. But when you start adding that up all the time, it's really expensive. So you come and work with someone like me where we don't focus on you starving to death. It's not about creating this crazy budget that nobody could ever stick to. It's about looking at your actual real budget, what you're really spending. And we focus on sticking to that, and then making payments that you can make, and then we get rid of all these crazy phone calls that cause you to run out and pay bills you don't have money for, therefore overdraw your check, literally hundreds of dollars, and this is not uncommon. I see this a lot. So we stop that wheel from going, and then over a course of time, I have clients that have been with me for a year now, and they've changed their behaviors. Their grocery bills have gone down a couple $100 a month. They're paying bills on time. Their old debt's gotten reduced, and the only thing they did was make a commitment to show up. So that's, something to think about too when you've got all this debt going on and notices and everything. You need to stop the hamster wheel. You need to stop everything going around in a circle and getting stressed out, which affects your sleep, your eating habits, your work, and then you get stressed about your job, and so it creates a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that goes through my head with respect to two things. One is the payday loans. I don't even know. I don't know what the restrictions are in Massachusetts. I do know what they are in Rhode Island, and there aren't any. And then settlement advance loans that I see people coming into my office trying to get on personal injury settlements. And what I can tell you is that if you are talking about taking a loan like that to pay somebody like Citibank, go in default. Don't take that loan. Obviously, if it's a question of, feeding your children, you need to make those sort of balancing questions, but never. If you, I would never advise anyone to ever use any of those services. There's just, once you get in it, there's no way out. The fees are just too great.
Yeah, and that's the hamster wheel going. And you can't just stop it. I mean, when someone comes on to me, we just have to stop the wheel. You know, just stop it. This is what you can afford. This is what you can start off with. And if you have children, it's not an embarrassment, but maybe you need some food stamps for a while. You know, it's about your life. It's nobody else's life. It's your life. It's what works for you and what you need to do to get back on track. And there's no shame in it. But you don't want to get on something, and plus the interest rates in those are exorbitant.
38% a month or something ridiculous?
Yeah, you're never going to get out of it.
Yeah. You can't, you just cannot afford to do that. You're far better off not paying than you are taking a loan like that.
And no offense to credit card companies, but they're not going to go out of business because you're in default, you know.
And I know, and I take this with a grain of salt, but my attitude has always been that, you know, starting a new business going forward, if I have to file Chapter 7, I file Chapter 7.
And what is Chapter 7?
Chapter 7 is a form of bankruptcy. There's two types. There's a Chapter 7 and there's a Chapter 13 for individuals. 13 requires a repayment back of a certain amount over a period of 3 years. Chapter 7 discharges all of the debts. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it happens. I'm not suggesting that that is a responsible thing. I'm not suggesting any of those things. But I am saying that, you know, if it comes down to feeding your kids or filing a Chapter 7, you're going to file a Chapter 7 so you can feed your kids.
Right.
I mean, you know, you've got to make the decisions that you've got to make when they're in front of you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually did a Chapter 7. I don't mind sharing that. It's been like 13 or 15 years ago. I was in between insurances. I was a consultant. I made a lot of money. But different long-term consulting jobs, as consultants can identify with, offer insurance. And so I was in between consulting jobs, and I did not have the insurance. And my appendix ruptured. I had no choice. Actually, I thought it was because of my cooking, because I had made chili. I made 5-star chili.
Are you sure it wasn't?
I don't know, but the whole thing really ruptured. By the time I went to the emergency room, I could barely stand up. I couldn't fill out paperwork. They had to stabilize me and bring in special surgeons and stuff. So the long and the short of it, that 5-star chili cost me like $35,000, and there was no way I could pay it. I applied for free help and stuff, but I made too much money. As the middle class, our blues, you know, we make too much money to get all these great benefits that are out there, but not enough money to be able to afford something like that.
Or coffee.
Or coffee.
Right.
No, that's true. So I started paying it off, and I couldn't, and I was getting back to work, and there was just no way I was going to pay that off. And I sat down and spoke with a counselor, and I filed Chapter 7 because I was a single mother at the time with a daughter, and we needed to eat. And, you know, the hospital I went to, they're in business. In fact, they just built a multi-million-dollar emergency room extension, so my situation didn't put them out. And I'm not saying run out because all these big companies are not going to go out of business if you don't pay them. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes when your back's against the wall, Chapter 7 is an option. I tried to pay it for several years. I could never get ahead of the interest. I couldn't get any financial help, where there's other people going in that made a little less than me, and they're getting their whole bills written off. And I was stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Well, you know, and particularly when you're talking about post-judgment interest, you're looking at 12% on that debt, which is really, really hard to pay off. I mean, it's the same sort of situation when you're talking about credit cards. But to be able to set yourself up in a payment where you're paying that interest and making a dent on capital at a decent level is really hard. I had a $38,000 loan from Roger Williams when I graduated at 8%. And over a 10-year period of time, I think I was paying like $400 a month, and it still took me 10 years to pay that off.
Yeah.
So, and that was a graduated loan that was set up so that I would be able to pay it off eventually, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. So these are tough times, you know. But there are solutions, and we've given you a couple of those solutions today and shared a little bit about our own backgrounds, you know. We might have a business that's doing well today, but we're human beings, we're people, we have histories, we have kids, or families, and things happen. And cats, yeah.
Okay.
We have cats. Let's talk about cats for a few minutes at the end of the show.
Yeah.
How come cats are not tax write-offs? I wonder.
My cat's tax write-off. Didn't you know that?
For security?
No, I call that
security?
medical bills. What about you?
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
I hope you know we're kidding. Somebody watching the show will be like, grab those two. Pretty soon men in dark sunglasses will be running in
Fine.
here and picking us up.
Let them come after me. That's fine. No, I would think they'd be therapy animals.
They could be therapy animals. I would go for that. My cats are definitely my therapy. So, more questions. We've gotten a few watchers. We're still working on that. And it's hard to do. I'm trying to post it to like Reddit and Pinterest and everything. So if you're watching this too, let us know other places where we can post and get this show out. But I think it's going to be fun. We want to give interesting facts, but we also just want to talk about stuff. We'd love to hear from you, your stories and situations. And the show initially is going to be like 20 minutes, and then we'll grow it. And we're still going to get a sign for the back. I have to work on that for staples and a logo and stuff like that. But
Sure.
I think that's good for today.
All right. Well, you guys enjoy your week and go out and make some money.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Ciao. Anything?
Ciao.
Ciao. I don't know. Ciao. Ciao. All right.
Ciao.